Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Scruffy Movies podcast. I'm Zach Wallace.
And I'm John Crocker.
This is an episode I have been very excited to record for a long time. I honestly still can't believe, I was halfway through this movie and still kept having the same kind of, I can't believe I'm actually watching this feeling, because we are going to do our Avengers Endgame review. Just before we hop into it, I want to let everybody know you should have seen from the title, but just in case maybe you didn't, this is going to be a spoiler review. We are going to talk all spoilers, all kinds of stuff. So if you do happen to have not seen Avengers Endgame yet, you don't want it to be spoiled for you, do not listen any further.
Yeah, for real. If you haven't seen Endgame, do not listen to this.
Yeah, if you want it spoiled for you, go for it. Great. Listen, see if you want to see the movie based off of our opinions. If you have not seen it yet and you don't want to be spoiled, do not listen to this. We will spoil it. I will make sure, though, that halftime stays kind of spoiler-free, at least where we give away the digital code, so you have a safe spot to hop into to see the code. But other than that, don't listen, because there is a lot to get through, and it's going to be all spoilers.
Where do we even begin?
I don't even know. Let's just begin with general opinions. What did you think? Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it. I think that for a movie that had to do as much as this movie had to do, it was awesome. It was absolutely great. They covered a ton of ground. I mean, it was very, pretty segmented in the, get the team back together, get the plan, actually go fight, explain time travel, sunset / kill off certain people. They covered a ton of ground in this. And at no time did I ever feel like it was dragging along. And I mean, it really kept me definitely not on the edge of my seat the entire time. There's some moments that are sort of solemn and slow purposefully, but it definitely never left me wanting.
Yeah, I agree with that. I liked it a lot too. And really, when it was over, I was just thinking to myself, wow, that did not feel like 3 hours long. It went by so fast. I feel like that I wasn't sitting there for 3 hours at all.
Yeah, agreed. That's, we've covered that a few times on the podcast. A lot of people don't necessarily like long movies, and I understand, but this is one of those that it really does feel like it's over too quick. I mean, and not in a bad way, but, just in general.
Yeah, I immediately, when it ended, I was like, well, I got to see that again. I wish, there's some stuff. I did think the beginning was a little slow of just, kind of ramping back up and, giving everybody the hope again after it's been 5 years in this movie. They kill Thanos in the first 5 minutes, and then it's been 5 years. And so I just thought it was a little slow ramping up, figuring out the situation and getting everybody involved again. I thought that process was a little slow, but then once the team was assembled and basically once Ant-Man came out of the quantum realm and started getting the wheels spinning on the actual storyline, I was good to go. It didn't feel slow anymore.
Yeah, just as soon as in a particular viewing I was at, as soon as Thor lobs his head off, it gets real quiet, and then someone in the back goes, well, that was a good movie, and everybody just erupts in laughter. It was a great moment for everyone in the theater, for sure.
Yeah, that was my friend turned to me as it was happening, and he was like, I'm confused. They're just going after him already? That's it? They just know where he is? There's no movie in between? They're just gone? They're going? And then it even does, it fades to black afterwards, and you're like, well, all right.
Yeah, exactly. And it was in that fade to black moment that someone shouted out. Yeah, there's a lot of things in this movie that I feel like I have a love-hate relationship with, and I'm still honestly trying to figure out, if I like it or if I don't like it.
The decisions or the movie itself?
Both. So, 2 at the top of the list are New Hulk, which is just they just kind of breeze right past the whole how he's sort of the combined Bruce Banner Hulk now. They never really let you warm up to that. They sort of flirt with it for just a moment, and then it's just okay, this is how it is, and I'm accepting that. And then same thing with Lebowski Thor. Like, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. I absolutely thought it was hilarious. I loved it. But did I like it? Like, that's the decision they made for Thor? I don't know. I'm still rationalizing that and, like, working out my own feelings on those two things.
Yeah,
But I don't hate it. I want to make that clear. But I don't know. I love it and I don't love it all at the same time.
yeah, that was something that that was actually what was spoiled for me. I remember telling you that I had one thing which was kind of a spoiler spoiled for me, but it let me know that spoilers were coming, so I hopped out. That's what was spoiled for me, is that it was like, confirmed Professor Hulk is in the movie, and I went oh, and clicked out of the article. So it was stuff that people, like, everybody assumed it was going to be Professor Hulk, but it just hadn't been officially confirmed yet. And then once that footage leaked, it confirmed it. And so that was the spoiler I saw. But yeah, I wish they would have gone, just even a question, because they kind of are like, whoa, hey, now you're Bruce and Hulk. And he's like, yep, put them both together. Bam. I wish he would have been like, yeah, I had to go to Antarctica for 3 months, but we finally figured ourselves out. I mean, he gives kind of the explanation of, I always viewed Hulk as a virus, but then I started thinking, what if he's the cure? But other than that, they've shown that Hulk and Bruce, especially in Infinity War, are two almost warring personalities at times. Like, they're two completely different people that just happen to inhabit the same body. In Thor Ragnarok and in Infinity War, we see that multiple times. Bruce does not know what's happening when Hulk's in control of the car, and Hulk does not care what's happening when Bruce is in control of the car. And so I would have liked to have seen, I agree with you, a little bit more of explanation of, like, how did they come together? Because, I mean, they've even had conversations. Like, Bruce is asking Hulk questions, and he hulks out for a second to say no, and then goes back in.
Yeah. I accept it 100%. Like, when it happened, I was like, okay, this is just what we're dealing with now. And especially in the scene with the Ancient One, which I thought was great. I mean, that whole like moment between Banner and the Ancient One, where she knocks him out of Hulk, and they're actually, like, he's the only one that gains a stone by conversation. I thought that was done very, very well. The Ancient One is always someone I've wanted to see more of, so totally dig that. And I know you had to have Professor Hulk to set that up, and then it makes sense for the rest of the movie. But at the same time, I wish they would have given just a little, maybe something extra.
I also like that a lot, that because we never got any kind of inkling in Doctor Strange. We knew the Ancient One was, like, super smart and everything, but we never got any inkling that she had predicted the future or knew much about the future. And so I like that when Hulk shows up, she's like, hey, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm here for Stephen Strange. And she's like, oh yeah, you're 5 years too early. Like, she knows exactly, like, everything that's going down. She knows the exact timeline, like, all this stuff.
Yeah. And when he says, like, oh, he gave it up willingly, then she gave it up willingly. Like, I just love that. I love that little connection there.
Yeah, I loved to see that trust that she had for Doctor Strange. After Bruce admits that he gave it up willingly, immediately she's like, well, then it must have been for a reason. Here, take it. Like, immediately. But also, kind of speaking of the Ancient One, holy crap at all of the cameos in this movie. My God, half of the budget must have just went to actor salaries.
Yeah, I mean, everybody shows up. I mean, in the end, that's one of the high points. Like, one of my favorite aspects of this movie, for an Avengers movie, is that absolutely everyone who has ever helped in any way, shape, or form shows up at some point to do something.
Yeah, I actually just caught somebody found Howard the Duck in it. Howard the Duck's in the final fight. He shows up. He comes through one of the portals, and he's carrying, like, a machine gun.
What? I missed that, totally.
Howard the Duck's in it, and I especially loved my favorite because I was praying that we would see more Korg, and yes, we did.
A good bit, too, like a solid bit. And talking about the scene, you got to give me your thoughts on Lebowski Thor, dude.
I liked it. I liked the decision. I thought that, and it's kind of because they had to spend so much time doing everything else. We didn't really get to spend a lot of time with Thor, but I felt like all of that was kind of it came together and was, like, explained away with the uh scene with his mom that we were able to get and Thor the Dark World time. I really like that. I like that he kind of, because he never got closure with his mom. And I think in a lot of ways, he never got closure with a lot of people because Thanos killed them. And so being able to go back and kind of get the closure to speak to his mother and stuff, I thought was really cool. And I think that kind of cinched the Thor Big Lebowski stuff where he was just super fat. Kind of wish maybe, I mean, I don't know how Thor's physiology works. I'm sure he can't just like lightning away the pounds, but it would have been cool if he showed up final fight not chubby, although they didn't really focus on that much anymore.
Yeah, God, dude, Thor. There's so much with Thor in this movie, so much. Like, I wish that when he sliced the head off, and he said, "I went for the head," like, and then it flashes to him later. Like, I wish that they would have mentioned just a little bit that he slipped maybe back into more that vengeful mindset, which the whole Thor arc this entire time has been him like getting to his mind right with like how to lead and but truthfully kind of becoming more like Odin and less like a warrior. And he sort of slipped back into what possibly made him unworthy, beforehand. And I wish they would have touched on that a little bit more, because that would have really made the scene worth it, which is one of the best scenes in the movie, is when he reaches his hand out and his mom goes, "Sometimes this takes a minute." And Mjolnir comes back and he goes, "I'm still worthy," yes, that's so awesome. And I mean, if there was one scene in this whole movie, and I know this is going to sound just absolutely terrible, but this is how much I care about Thor. The only real time I actually maybe possibly could have felt a tear welling up was with the Thor's mom scene. Like, all of that to me was like the most emotional part of the movie, which is probably just totally the opposite for most people out there. I think that I wish that there could have been some sort of something like you're talking about, where he's just like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to go like run 200 miles real quick because I'm Asgardian and I can do that, and just shred this weight," and then show up and be like, or show up totally fit again and be like, "Oh, this is like, it only takes me 3 days. We had time to prepare," or something, just because he is a freaking god. But then on the flip side, like when he does sort of get his power and his beard gets braided and he really turns more into like Jason Momoa looking Thor instead of Thor looking Thor that we know, it would be cool for him to assume more like Odin type personalities. Like, I would love to see him grow into that, and this just sort of be the excuse and sort of the chapter in the history of why all of a sudden Thor looks like this now, a little bit different and a little bit more powerful, is because he went through this time period where he fell in a slump and gained all this weight, and now he's more Odin-esque. And then there's the fact that he has 2 weapons now. Like, that's a thing. He's always going to have to wrangle 2 weapons at this point.
No,
like,
not anymore. No.
What happened? Why?
Whenever that would have totally thrown off the timelines if they kept Mjolnir in present day. Thor took it in order to have it for the final fight, but when Cap goes back in time at the end of the movie to replace the stones at the exact time they were
He
taken,
hands it to him.
Yeah, he takes Mjolnir with him.
You're
so
right.
I'm assuming that he drops it back off in Thor: The Dark World era.
You're right. Gosh, Thor did actually. He had a lot of screen time, in my opinion, and I think he went through a lot in this movie, which I'm happy with. I'm a huge Thor fan, so for me, that suited my needs. But there was a lot going on with Thor that, again, a lot of love hate in that with some of the decisions that were made. I loved it all. I loved it 100%. But it still just rubs me just a little tiny bit the wrong way, maybe.
Yeah, and speaking of Thor and kind of this being his movie, I really felt like, and we've talked about this before, that this was like a great movie for the original 6 Avengers. Like,
Yes.
This was a great note for everybody to go out on. Everybody kind of got their chance to shine. Everybody got their awesome moment and stuff. And I especially loved, surprisingly, because I mean, and I don't dislike Hawkeye, but he's always just kind of the butt of the joke, His role was awesome in this movie. I felt like to see him turn to Ronan and just like absolutely lose it. Like when he went back in time first and then almost got a glimpse of his family but got sucked back. I felt so bad for him, and he didn't even get a chance to process that because everybody was still relying on him, and so he just was like, it worked, let's do it, we can do it.
Yeah. Let's talk about Hawkeye. So I wish, again, this is what happens when you have so many characters in such short time period. I think they grazed over maybe a little bit too much of him turning to Ronin, and like, because we get why he did it, because the why was set up very well, but it really also wasn't, because it's a far stretch, in my opinion, to go from always being a good guy, like more of a cop style superhero, honestly, and especially like pulling Black Widow up and sort of saving her. Like, it's a further stretch for me to go from like that kind of a superhero to a super villain almost, or like a really super anti-hero, but really more of a villain. Ronan is typically portrayed as. I don't know. I just felt like it was a really, really big jump. Like too big. Because I thought he was maybe too good for that.
I agree with you up until the point where we see Black Widow first talk with him, and the line he gives to that guy where he's like, what are you doing? And he goes, you survived. Like, that's all he had to say. And I was like, I get it. Like, I totally understand that turn. He lost his entire family. And so now he's like, why did all of these bad people, these villains, get to survive and my family didn't? So I'm taking back what was taken from me. And
then the Avengers just trust him, though. Like, he went from being a good guy they had in their corner to a mass murderer, like out on a rampage. And then they're just like, oh, you're good again, or you're cool. Come hang out with us.
It was only bad guys, though. And you could tell even like the Avengers weren't just immediately cool, especially even Rhodey, when he had with his little hologram thing talking with Natasha, and he was like, I don't even know if I want to find him with everything he's done. And so I don't necessarily think it was like, all right, hey Clint, everything's cool, man. But people were like understanding of, I guess, why he did it, and then kind of looking the other way in the stance of, we need as many people as we can get. Clint is a person that we can trust and we know him.
Well, the biggest upset in the entire movie, absolutely positively, is that Black Widow died instead of him. And I think it would have made so much sense to complete the Ronin arc by him being like, you know what? I went off the deep end. I did a lot of bad things. I got to pay for my sins. And he goes out like that. That's what I wanted to see. But we had to kill off my favorite person in the whole MCU.
But see, Hawkeye still has unresolved issues. He still has to go back to his family. He still had to see his family again. Natasha's arc has run its course. She has finally redeemed herself to the point where if she didn't die, the world wouldn't be the same anymore. Like, she has finally redeemed herself. She has removed the red from her ledger. And like we've said before, which is
don't use her words against me.
What?
So don't use her words against me, Zach.
and this is one of the reasons why I was going into this movie thinking Black Widow might need to watch out, because I think she has a target on her back. She's getting her own movie, but it's set in the 90s and it's a prequel series. You're keeping the actress, you're keeping the character around, but you're removing her from modern day. You no longer have to worry about her in modern day. You don't have to worry about, what does she do in the past affects her future and all this stuff. We've seen Black Widow in the future. Every future movie will not have anything to do with Black Widow. But set in the 90s, we can get an entire Black Widow story arcs, characters, because all of that is just set up for stuff that we've already seen happen in the present. So,
I don't like any of what you just said. Kill off Stark, Sunset, Captain America, but don't touch Black Widow.
She's gone.
I know. I'm so sad. That really did bum me out. I knew it was coming. For the same reasons you knew it was coming. I saw it a mile away. When the scene set itself up, and I knew exactly where they were headed, and I knew what it was going to come down to. I saw it coming the whole time after they sort of got tasked with that mission. And I was just like, I had so much hope. And that scene was so back and forth. And when he finally got her, like when she was at the edge and he started running, I was like, yes, she's going to live. And it just crushed me how it played out.
I mean, as soon as like they dropped off Nebula and Rhodes on the planet to get the Power Stone before Peter did in Guardians of the Galaxy time, and they're like, yeah, good luck on Vormir. I was like, they're going to get the Soul Stone? Well, one of them ain't coming back. Like, I knew immediately one of them was dying. I was like, there's no reason why they put two people who loved each other in the same jet going to the place where we know somebody has to die that you love in order to get the stone.
Okay, two things on that. One, and this, I have to admit, this is not my thought. It's something that someone else mentioned, and I have no knowledge and the ability to qualify this at all. But someone mentioned that with the Eternals, I don't know anything about the Eternals. I can't even wager a guess with the Eternals. But there are rumors floating around in the rumor sphere that say the fact that Gamora and Black Widow, their bodies hit the ground and laid in the exact same pose, that could have something to do with the Eternals, and they may not necessarily be totally written out for future movies because of that. So I don't know. I can't prove it. Not my original idea, but something I want to hang on to. And B, I want to know, how do you return a Soul Stone? How did did he just go hand it to the red guy and be like, all right, like whoever's next to him?
I would have loved to see that interaction, because the last time Captain America saw Red Skull, he was a bad guy and he was being sucked out of the Quinjet that Captain America was about to fly into the ice by the Tesseract.
That's true. He was Captain America's big baddie. So, yeah.
So I would have I'm sure he did something where he just went and was like, yep.
Yeah, they grazed over a lot of that type of stuff with the whole, like, Cap is just going to tramp back through the past and replace all of these things. And a lot of that also leads to the time travel thing, because the time traveling deal in this movie, they did such an excellent job at sort of saying, no, it's not like what you think of time travel. And they mention like all of the great time travel movies. I mean, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure got a shout out in this movie.
Hot Tub Time Machine got a shout out in this movie.
Like they did a great job at sort of laying that out. But it's certainly one of those things. See, here's where I'm at a handicap for having only seen this once. I almost could not keep up in their explanation, and I like to think I keep up with like time travel movies a little bit. So I'm sure when I go back and I really sort of read the transcript of what they're saying when he sort of explains it all, like I know it will make sense, but I sort of just give that to them. And they leave sort of in my opinion, a lot of open doors, or at least they want you to give them just a lot of credit and go along with a lot of things when it comes to the whole time travel deal in this movie. And especially like we were just saying with Cap, just sort of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go replace them all. And it's going to be cool because it took a whole team. Like we all got in trouble when we had to get them. But, you know, going back into those exact same scenarios we just lost will be a cakewalk.
Yeah, so my friends also had a little bit of an issue with with the time travel aspect of everything, and I was trying to explain it to them because after the movie, I felt like I understood it, and people were like, "Nebula shot her past self. Shouldn't she be done?" And I was like, "No, because Guardians of the Galaxy has technically already happened. We're in Avengers Endgame time now. This 2014 Nebula that jumped forward is a different Nebula than what we've seen throughout the entire MCU so far. And she's negated herself from the timeline by jumping forward. She doesn't return." But
Bingo. So that's the way I thought of it, is that we are not returning. We are bringing those sort of bubbles of time, that we're bringing those little pockets to us to interact with. It's like we're bringing the past forward instead of going back to the past.
Right, and I know that the Ancient One was kind of using it to explain the Infinity Stones, but it seemed to work for this as well. She's like, you take one stone away, and then like a single black line came from it. And she's like, this is what can happen. And so I was like, oh, okay. So they're creating a bunch of different like alternate black timelines, like alternate lines in the universe, like the Ancient One was showing, But then when Cap goes back and basically replaces the stones, they all go boop, 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 like back into the regular gold line that it was.
Yeah. Now, here's a little something extra with that. Loki is a trickster, and he did disappear with a Tesseract in a different timeline, I'm aware. But Loki, if anyone, would be the person that could somehow like know the fact that he's in a timeline and meander his way back into the one that matters.
Oh, I don't he didn't necessarily create an alternate timeline. This is where everything was getting a little confusing for my friends and stuff. But 2012 Avengers has already happened in the MCU the way we see it. So everybody living in the present MCU that we know has lived these events. But because Endgame happened, they've now created this other Avengers stuff, but it's happening technically now. I know it happens in 2012, but it's happening technically now for all of us in the MCU, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is in that split second, Loki could have done something to know what's going on and be able to take advantage of it. I don't know if that would require him hopping time or riding a time wave or whatever it may be, but for some reason, I just feel like he could be one we see crop back around and be like, "I saw you there. I knew what you were doing in that bubble in time." Because maybe he's sort of able to tap into that sort of thing, to where when they replayed that moment in the past, he could put himself there again somehow. Because Loki's dead right now, right?
No, Loki is gone. They set up for the Loki show. This was something where, and my wife kind of had the words that I'm going to use right now. I, going into this movie, was like, I don't want them to bring Gamora back. I don't want them to bring Loki back. If they just appear, like, if they're like, oh, we got everybody from the afterlife, I was going to be super mad. They were not in the snap. There was no easy way to bring them back. They gave Loki his spinoff to his TV show premise so easily. Like, he just zipped out with the Tesseract. Loki's missing in alternate universes, timelines, whatever you want to call it. Loki's gone now and is setting up for his Disney Plus show. He didn't have his turn to the good. He is 2012 like villain Loki. So
when did we see him? When did they send him off? Was that it?
Yeah, he grabbed the Tesseract and was like, boop, and then he was gone. We never saw him.
What I'm saying is totally valid that he's going to crop up again, because in that scene he grabbed it and dipped.
Yeah, he dipped out basically to his Disney Plus show, I'm assuming.
Okay, so that scene in Endgame that we're talking about right now. So that's what I was saying, is that, yeah, I feel like they were lobbing Loki a softball is what I was saying, and if he didn't smash it, I would be surprised. But yeah, if this is what's going to lead into his show, then that makes perfect sense.
And how like seamless they brought those people back. Like it was to the point where 2014 Gamora had jumped into present day, and I was still like just watching it like, yep, past Gamora. And then kind of when she saw Peter and everything again, I was like, oh my God, they brought her back. Like, I wasn't even thinking of the fact that this Gamora is now our timeline Gamora. Like, it didn't even cross my mind at all. And they set up for so much stuff so like seamlessly. I feel like they set up for an amazing Guardians 3. They set up for the Loki show. They set up for Falcon and Winter Soldier show. They didn't really set up for Vision and Scarlet Witch, mainly because Vision wasn't in the movie, so I don't know how that's going to happen. But they just set up so much stuff so like easily, I feel like, that it was wrapping up character stuff, but then it's like, oh no, this is how they're going to go on.
Well, let's talk about Gamora before you get too far ahead.
Okay.
So do we now have a present day Gamora again? Are we just going to have to reteach her everything
yes,
she doesn't know yet?
We technically have a still not all the way good Gamora, because we saw at the end of the movie, Peter was searching for her. She went missing after the final fight. Nobody's seen her. So I'm assuming that's what Guardians 3 is going to be about. Let's go find this Gamora who doesn't know us, doesn't trust us, and doesn't want to be with us, and we have to convince her that she's a part of our team. It's almost like Letty in Fast and Furious. I feel like she's going to crop up somewhere and be a bad person, or like semi-bad, and then they're going to have to like find her and kind of re-teach her who they are and that they're her family and stuff.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering is like when everything was set back to the way it should be, did that mean that Gamora would be sucked back into, non-existence again, basically? Oh, what's that sound mean?
That sound means it's halftime.
Whoop, whoop.
So, like I said, I'm going to try and keep this one a little spoiler-free, but I definitely want to pick up on the conversation we were just having because I am very interested in that, and I want to follow that rabbit hole. But halftime, if you haven't listened to the show before, is the part where Crocker and I take a break from the conversation we're having, and we talk through some recent movies we've seen, movie trailers, news we're excited about. It's also been where we're giving away our free digital copies, and this week, unfortunately, no Marvel movies I had to give away, but kind of keeping in theme with movies that did not go the way I expected them to, because Avengers Endgame definitely did pull a lot of surprises I wasn't expecting. We are going to be giving away a free digital copy of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, which was another extremely surprising movie that I just did not know what to expect from it and was absolutely blown away. So if you want to win a free digital copy of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, all you got to do is comment the code word ROCK below, or direct message me on Instagram at Scruffy Movies. Again, the code word is ROCK, and you'll be entered to win a free digital copy of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle.
Awesome. So I have a very short halftime this week because I knew we were going to be talking about loads and loads of in-game stuff.
Okay, go for it. I also have a very short halftime.
Really, the only thing on my list that got me pumped in the past week was seeing the trailer for Gemini Man, which is the old Will Smith versus young Will Smith movie. I'm super curious about it. The trailer, it made me go, like you often say, like you have certain people who have just earned a watch no matter what movie they make. Will Smith certainly falls into that category for me. Some of my favorite movies ever, really, Men in Black, iRobot, have been Will Smith. So I already know that I'm going to see this movie, and now the question is really just how in the world are they going to pull that off? And I cannot wait to see how it comes together.
Yeah, it looks interesting. It looks kind of strange. I hope they're not finished with the CGI for young Will Smith yet, because it took me a couple glances to be like, wait, is that supposed to be young Will Smith? So
I thought it was great. I've seen the trailer a few times now, and I think they did a great job.
Maybe it's because I saw it on like a super huge blown up screen before Endgame, and it was kind of very noticeable that it was CGI stuff.
Yeah.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, a short halftime for me as well. The beauty of being able to record our podcast on a Sunday that releases tomorrow means we can be super topical with the news. So for the wrap up of the weekend, Avengers actually made $1.2 billion globally in the first weekend it was open. First movie to ever earn $1 billion opening weekend.
And it made what?
$1.2 billion opening weekend globally.
It absolutely smashed the $1 billion threshold.
Yeah, and there's only been more recently, we've seen a lot of blockbusters cross that threshold, but I still think the list is pretty exclusive. It's like 15 or less, and probably even less than 15 that have ever even made $1 billion at all, and it made it in one weekend. Avatar and Titanic got targets on the back, and they need to watch out because Endgame is gunning for them.
There's another Titanic coming?
No, Titanic and Avatar are the two highest grossing movies of all time. They're the only movies to ever cross $2 billion.
And like lifetime value.
Right. And Endgame has already made that in one weekend. So for the rest of its theatrical run, which is probably going to be like 4 to 5 months, it has a very high probability of crossing one of the two, if not both.
Yeah, I would say so. It had better. My goodness.
A couple new trailers this week, some that I'm very excited about. One I am super pumped for, Godzilla King of the Monsters. We got a new trailer for. Looks absolutely amazing. This movie seems like it's shaping up to be incredible. They mentioned in the trailer that they have 17 kaiju that are out roaming around the earth at one point. So probably we have a big 3 fight that is focusing on the monsters that we know, but it seems like Godzilla might take on more than just those three as originally thought. We also saw a trailer for Men in Black International, which is one that I was kind of cautiously excited for. I wasn't really sure what to expect from it, but the more I see from it, the more I get more excited about it. So that one looks really good. And then finally, some news I thought you would appreciate. It actually just happened like right before we recorded this podcast. Vin Diesel basically confirmed that John Cena will be joining the cast of Fast and Furious for Fast and Furious 9.
I have the music playing in my head right now. John Cena's, oh my goodness. Well, all right. That's one that I will cautiously go into. I again, hate John Cena. I hate a lot of things.
All right, so I guess that's it for halftime this week. Again, if you want to win a free digital copy of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, enter the code word ROCK below on the YouTube video you're watching right now, or direct message me at Scruffy Movies on Instagram. Let's get back into Avengers Endgame. Yes, I do believe we have a modern Gamora now, because as I was saying with Nebula, that timeline jump, like there's no time machine for them to return to the past. At least if there wasn't any direct way for them to use it or understand it, basically because Gamora is the only person left now, and she has gone missing from what we saw at the end of Endgame. So she is our modern day Gamora that time jumped from 2014 into present day, and now I'm assuming that's what Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be about.
So it's because she traveled with Thanos and Nebula.
Correct.
They're both Nebulas, and sort of she came there herself and on that ship, and because of that, everything that was put back the way it was excluded them, but everyone else that we care about is accounted for or dead that came through with them.
Right. Basically, still the timeline exists because they replaced everything. And so 2014 plays out once the way it's always been, the way it's always supposed to be. But then once we reach 2019 or 5 years later from 2019 in Endgame, that is when things get wonky and the alternate universe lines and stuff like that. So that is when 2014 Gamora makes the jump. So in her universe, Guardians of the Galaxy never happened, but in ours, it's already happened. And then that's what leads to Gamora jumping into present day.
Gotcha. Okay. So I want to hear what you thought about sort of how it all played out. Like with even the time travel or them going to kill Thanos in the very beginning to sort of really just discovering time travel all of a sudden, like perfectly timed to the very, very end where we get sort of Stark running up and somehow getting the gems, the stones to come to his gauntlet instead, all the way through to like sunsetting the older cast members. Like, what did you think of sort of the structure and how it all like went along? Because I mean, we all went into this movie not really knowing what to expect, but I had no idea that anything really plot-wise was going to play out the way that it did. Like, it's one of those things where I guess I knew how it was all going to ultimately play out, but I didn't know how they were going to get us there. You know what I mean? What did you think about how they got us everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, I really liked it. I felt like it was an awesome celebration of the MCU as we've known it so far. I felt like almost it was like a band that had a greatest track CD that everybody's like, great, all these awesome greatest tracks that we love. And they were like, no, but we updated them. We changed some stuff around. We think you guys are going to like these tracks a lot more. So it's like, it's getting to relive something that we've seen before and that we've loved, but in a different light. So I really like the way they did the time travel. I like that we got to see some parts of like the Battle of New York, some stuff that we didn't get to see after the fact, like immediately following the fight. We didn't get to see any of that stuff. I felt like we were more like it was almost as if we've seen all these events play up as they are now, and then the people behind the camera knew that. And so it wasn't us necessarily watching like Tony and Scott watch the 2012 Avengers. It felt like we were included. if that makes any sense. It felt like that the audience was part of the heist because we've also seen these events play out. We know what happens. We know that these characters know what happens. And I don't know. It felt like we were a part of it. It didn't feel like we were just watching a movie. It felt like we were going along the ride with these people, reliving stuff. We were all in the same boat together, and I really liked it.
There was a lot of fan service. Like they did not spare an opportunity to give a nod. Like one of my favorite scenes is when it's Cap versus Cap, and he goes, "I can do this all day," and he goes, "I know."
Yeah,
Like that was great. I just loved that.
yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's kind of it's the episode 8 debate that we've had before, where Ryan Johnson saying like, I knew all like the fan service and all this stuff I could make, but then I threw that out the window because it wasn't a movie that I was true to. And then you and I have said, but like, yeah, but that's what we wanted. Like,
yeah,
as fans, we've earned those nods. Like, we've earned you winking at us and being like, hey, thanks for being along for the ride. You and only the people that are cool, that have seen these movies around you, will understand what we're doing here. And that's awesome in a franchise that's 11 years old at this point, getting able to see that kind of stuff where they're like, we know what you've resonated with. We know what you guys like, what you remember. And hey, thanks for being a fan. Wink, here's a nod to you. Thank you for being a fan for us. So that was super awesome.
The old Stark, young Stark moment, or well, old and not, you know what I mean. That whole moment that happened was also just awesome. Like that's something that they totally did not have to do, because that really, it didn't do anything other than to serve the purpose of what it did, which is close a lot of doors, warm a lot of hearts, give us that scene that Tony has built up his father, and his father has been like this secret character other than young Stark and like Captain America, that movie. But other than that, there's been this sort of missing part of Tony, which was ultimately boiled down to his dad. And then they give us that, and they didn't have to, because they really did not have to give us that. It was not crucial to the movie at all. And that's the type of stuff about this movie that I'm glad they took their time on. That was not a short scene, but I appreciate them for that.
Yeah, it's the same as like it's like you've watched these people. They're almost your friends for like 11 years. You support them and you want them to be able to find closure on things in their past that they don't have closure on. And kind of echoing Thor's mom scene and everything, he got closure with his mom. Tony finally got the closure with his dad. And so it is like that heartwarming, and it's not important to the movie, but I feel like it is like direly important to the character of Tony Stark, and being able to see that moment for him and get that closure with his dad that he never really got. And then because of eventually what happens to him later in the movie, I felt like that was a very important scene for him to be able to do.
Yeah, totally. And I just want to go back to the fact that the directors for this movie, or whoever, writers, producers, all of them, think about that job. Like this movie, when you have your list of like things we have to accomplish for no other reason than the fact that this is a sequel, and there are people that want to see this and want to see that, and dependent on this, and we built this up in the past, and we've got all these things to work with. Like this must have been the biggest puzzle ever. And it would have been so easy for literally anyone, even the greatest, to drop the ball in some way, shape, or form. But it was perfect. It was perfectly executed. And like I said, when we first got going with this podcast, they covered so much ground, but it was an awesome, cohesive, excellent movie. Like how? I'm still just mind boggled at how they managed to do this. It's blowing my mind just thinking about it again. I've been thinking about it for 3 days.
Yeah, I still like I went to bed thinking about it the day I watched it. I woke up thinking about it, like thinking of all the stuff. And especially one of the things I thought about, which we have not really touched on yet, because I know it's going to be a giant conversation for us, is that final fight scene. Holy crap. They got literally everybody.
Like,
it was insane. I whispered to my wife multiple times, like, holy shit. Like just every 10 seconds, I felt like I was saying, oh my God. And I had like my hands on my face, like Kevin McAllister in Home Alone, just sitting there gobsmacked with my mouth open wide at the sheer scope of what I was watching. It was insane.
For every single Avengers podcast we've ever had where it was applicable, I've always said that Scarlet Witch never really gets to show off. Like, even, and I know that in Wakanda she was slinging big balls of energy. I know she's radically released huge amounts of damage, like unwillingly. Like, she is so powerful. And to get the scene, dude, I was shaking in my pants when I saw that she had Thanos basically to where she was going to beat him.
She was going to kill him, like no sweat.
If he didn't turn the guns on his own army to basically get her off of him, she was going to kick his ass single-handedly. And that made me so happy, because if there's one tiny little bitty silver lining that Black Widow has died, it's that Scarlet Witch actually got to show off what she can really do, because that has been something I've been begging for so many movies. Those two were just like the dynamic duo for me. They were perfect. And I know Scarlet Witch is getting her own thing in the future too, right? So they're probably going to do something with her to like send her off at some point. But oh man, that was great. But yeah, all of the cameos. I mean, it was good to see Pepper back in, was it Rescue? Is that the name of her?
Yes.
Her superhero? Yeah, back in her armor. I mean, everybody came out. Got to see the queen of Asgard now, Valkyrie, on her white steed. God, I can't remember the name. Pegasus. That's Pegasus, right?
It is a Pegasus. I know that's the name of like the animal. I'm not sure if that one has an exact name. I'm sure it probably does, but I'm not aware of it.
Either way, it was awesome. A lot of awesome things. It's going to be cool to see how they also play that out with Asgard being, I guess, I was assuming that was on our planet somewhere.
Yes, I believe it is, just somewhere in like Sweden or something like that.
Yeah. So they set up kind of like you're saying, dude. They just set up for so many things in the future too. I mean, at every turn, it was like, well, here's a story we could explore.
Yeah, and like Thor's a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy now. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to be featuring Thor, which is amazing. And I loved the setup between him and Quill, like kind of combating each other for leadership over the ship. Like there was so much cool and easy setup for stuff they did. But yeah, that final fight, I am excited to get this movie on Blu-ray to rewatch it. But if just like to pause the movie and just look at everything that we didn't see, because I know myself, I didn't spot Howard the Duck, but somebody else did. I spotted M'Baku and Korg in the final fight, but a couple of my friends didn't see him. They're like, oh, M'Baku and Korg was there? And I was like, yeah, they were. So just imagine all of the people that are there we just haven't seen, because it happened so fast.
The only thing in that final fight that got me, that kind of made me go, all right. What was that? Was the perfect like women's Avenger poster scene. Did you see this? Where they all assembled right after they rescued Spider-Man. I forget who it was that initially rescued Spider-Man, but it was
Marvel.
Yeah, that's who it was. And then it was like the next girl and the next girl and the next girl and the next girl. And it was literally every single female superhero, side character, sidekick, every female character in the MCU just appears on screen all of a sudden. And they're all standing there like perfectly posed, heads above each other. And then they all rush into battle and they all scatter, and it goes back to where it's just everybody fighting and the camera's jumping around. And it was like, I mean, that was just totally like for a poster. If there was a screenshot this, because it is an epic, just like female hero poster image, that was it. And it's almost like it was something you would do for like a trailer somewhere. And then it just sort of dissolved back into the movie. And I was just like, that was awkward that they all just stopped fighting to stand together to take a selfie real quick or something and then move on. But okay.
I didn't mind it. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was like girl power. It's the same as the fan service stuff. It's the same as them winking to us. It was Marvel winking to the like female members of the audience and being like, look at all these awesome like super heroic female role models that we have in the movie. So I didn't really mind it. I thought it was an awesome like fan service moment, like we've been talking about. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah,
So let's segue from that then into what you thought about how they used Captain Marvel.
I liked the way they used Captain Marvel because I went into this hoping she wasn't going to drop down in Superman the whole thing, kind of like what we were talking about, where she just she's there and then it's just like it's done. It's over because she was there and she killed him. I really wanted this movie to be about the original 6 Avengers. I wanted them to shine, which they did, but I thought she still played an important enough role without being like the important factor in it. I thought they utilized her extremely well.
I think that they gave her the perfect amount of screen time. I was glad that she wasn't just always there like, hey, I'm a new Avenger now, tagging along for all the Avenger things y'all are doing. Like, if I'm super glad that wasn't the case. I think they did kind of Superman her a little bit, but that's her character, right? So there's like a fine line between that. But definitely in the beginning where Stark's about to die and then she's just like, surprise, I'm here to save you. And I guess I also brought air canisters too, because I'm sure it's a long way back to Earth and you would have definitely continued to die if I didn't show up. And then when her sort of second appearance there at the end where she does her, at this point, a classic move of bombing through a spacecraft to take it down. That was a little Superman-y, but again, it's one of those things where that's her character. They used her sparingly. It did definitely turn the tides of war. She showed up and definitely sort of made things go the way they needed to, but they did it in a way that I was absolutely positively okay with. Have nothing bad to say about it. She's still just like an asshole, and I don't like it. I don't like her personality. But other than that, I think unfortunately that might just be something I'm going to have to get used to.
Yeah, and that's kind of what could be said about Tony Stark. He definitely was an asshole in Iron Man, but he's transitioned and like grown character arc and stuff. So hopefully we just get more character arcs from her, because we even saw the Avengers kind of putting up some opposition to that when when they're like, what's going to be different this time? And she goes, you didn't have me. Immediately War Machine's like, hey, we get it. We're all superheroes and stuff here, but like, you haven't been here. You haven't fought this guy before. You don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm sure she has a character arc coming where she kind of learns that like, okay, I understand I am extremely powerful, but these are also people that are extremely powerful and they are here to help me as much as I'm here to help them. But let's talk. But right before we talk about the big thing of the movie, which is the big ending of the movie, I just briefly wanted to mention, because it was super awesome, Cap being able to wield Mjolnir. That was awesome. And he finally got his Avengers Assemble line, which made everybody in the audience lose their minds. This movie had so many moments where we just started applauding. I saw it with a great theater. Everybody was like super respectful, and we all applauded at like the right moments. Everybody laughed at the right moments. It was a super awesome theater going experience. And that like Cap lifting Mjolnir got a huge reaction. Everybody lost it.
See, I thought that he had shown that off in the past, that he could do it if he wanted to.
Yeah, he was the only one that was able to move it in Age of Ultron. And so there was even a lot of theories out there that was saying Cap knew he was worthy, and he saw that he could move it, like he felt it, like that he could move it,
and he didn't want to.
Yeah, and then he was like, "Oh no, I don't want to mess with Thor like that, because that would definitely like spiral him." So he just left.
That's how I originally interpreted that scene.
Yeah,
that's not my rumor. That's kind of the way I read it.
Yeah, and so and that would also explain if that was his thinking and like what actually happened in the Age of Ultron scene. That would explain his thinking of, he didn't look at Mjolnir and go, can't do that. He immediately just walked over and picked it up and like knew how to use it, and he had it down. Like he was good to go.
Yeah, and he also got like the lightning powers that come with it, which is freaking awesome. That was really cool. It was cool to see Thor dual wield when he had the opportunity. That was so awesome. Cool. There were a lot of like throwback video game moves from the like classic Thor moves where you call down the lightning bolt and you like, do the lightning thing that you throw out of the hammer, like really sort of classic Thor stuff other than him just throwing it and beating him with it. You know what I mean? Like you got to see full on more lightning abilities, I feel like, in this movie coming through the two of them than in recent movies.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to Thor Ragnarok a little bit too, where he finally learned to harness that ability, and like he can just use lightning powers without any kind of vessel.
No, dude, he's becoming Odin, bro. It's gonna
He
happen.
is.
It's gonna happen.
All right,
I'm so glad to see.
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm so glad to see that they just rolled him right on into Guardians 3, and where he's gonna continue being a big plot or a big part of the story. Super happy about that.
Yes, if only one problem I have with that, which wasn't really a problem, it's just my own personal preference. I wish when Thor got on the ship, we saw Korg and Meek be like, "Hey man, we're scared of the dock. You can't leave us alone," and get on the ship too, because I desperately want them to be a part of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
You know what? I bet if right now both his character name and his real name is slipping from me, but Big Blue Dude who from Guardians of the Galaxy, Drax.
He's not blue.
What color is he?
He's like a beige and red.
What?
He's not blue.
Drax.
Yeah, he's not blue.
The wrestler, the wrestler guy. What's his name?
Maybe like an extremely light blue.
Oh yeah, definitely a light blue, but certainly not a red. He has red markings. He's not like a whatever you just said.
I feel like he's like eggshell white.
Whatever. I bet. I just have a funny feeling that if this whole James Gunn debacle didn't work out, and Batista went off with James Gunn, that you might have seen Korg come in and be a new crew with Guardians of the Galaxy, because those two would replace each other brilliantly.
Yeah, just another dumb, super strong character that's immediate comic relief.
Yes, it hit it on the nail. Could not have said it better myself.
Yeah, but I'm hoping maybe we see Korg and Meek return in Guardians 3. I was really excited about that. Maybe they have some kind of issue they can't solve, and so Thor calls on help from his Asgardian brethren to come and save him and the Guardians. I would love to see that. So I guess we should move on to the big moment of the movie, which is the ending. Tony Stark is dead.
So we are led to believe.
He's done. Half of his face was burned up.
I know he's dead. But they did go out of their way to show that like Thor could do some lightning stuff to restart his heart. So, and they never like got to a point. I mean, they put him in the ground. You're right. He's dead. He ain't coming back, Zach. Why do you even got your hopes up?
You have your hopes up. What are you talking about?
He's dead.
I loved kind of what they did for him, the way he went out. I loved his final line of Thanos saying, "I am inevitable." And then we see that he has the stones on his hand, and he gets to repeat his line, which ended his first movie, which kicked off the entire rest of the MCU. "I am Iron Man." I thought that was such an awesome line for him to end on, and to finally kind of complete his character arc of he was always this vapid, self-obsessed guy, and he literally single-handedly, pun kind of intended, saved the entire universe by himself.
Yeah, totally. I was happy, I guess, that they gave it to him, and if they had to send him out, that's the way they sent him out.
Yeah, that was an awesome way to send him out. It made me I started tearing up in the theater. I was doing the sniffles and stuff, and my friend who was sitting beside me turned to me and he's like, "Are you crying?" I was like, "Yeah, man." And then it kept going, and I did like the sniffles again, and my wife was like, "Are you crying?" And I was like, "Yeah, leave me alone."
Yeah, that's sad. And then I think hasn't somebody also mentioned that Pepper's already sort of come out and said that she's not going to be returning for any future movies either.
Yeah, that's kind of fine with me. I would assume that she's probably busy doing her like single mom thing. So if only we see Happy as the face of the Stark Foundation, or however it's further represented in Spider-Man and like upcoming stuff, totally cool with me.
Now, Cap definitely went out in more of a way than I expected them to do. I guess we were both right, because in the big debate you and I have had
Yeah.
coming up to this was you thought they were going to get killed off, and I said they're going to sunset them, and one got killed and one got sunsetted. Two got killed because Black Widow definitely is just as important as Tony Stark. But I like the way they executed the sunsetting of Captain America. Now, the whole handing off the shield thing to Falcon, you had mentioned that that's setting up for an upcoming series. So I guess I'm totally cool with that too. Yeah, just I could not think of a better way for them to have handled it. When they glanced over and saw him sitting there on the bench, I knew exactly what was going on. I mean, all of this was so predictable, but so not predictable all at the same time.
Yeah, I really like the way they did it. I feel like kind of how Tony got to live his happy life, and then he got to finally prove himself that he would be the one that would sacrifice himself if it came down to it to save everybody, to save anybody, really. And then Cap finally got to live his happy life. He didn't have to worry about like being a man out of time or like all of these fights and all this stuff, because for as much as Cap grew in the time we've seen him in since his first movie, and then especially in Avengers and Winter Soldier, he's always still felt out of time. Like he's always still felt like he didn't truly belong here. And so to see him be able to go back and get married to Peggy and like live his life how he had always intended was super cool.
Yeah. God, yeah, it was great.
And plus now they set up, because I know for sure that they did have storylines in the comics where Cap loses his super soldier serum and he becomes just like an old man, but he becomes like the guy in the chair for Falcon and Winter Soldier and people like that. Like he becomes the tactical expert guy who's there to give them advice and stuff, and is this like super old man that can't hold his own in a fight but knows what he's doing and can give people advice on how to best go about what they're doing.
Man, we even saw the guy in the chair in this movie. He was totally there.
What? Which guy?
The guy in the chair.
Oh, Ned?
Yeah, the fat kid, the friend of Spider-Man. When he got
Yeah.
back to school, Ned was like, bro.
Yeah, I'm very curious, and I'm honestly kind of glad that they're keeping Spider-Man Far From Home now is going to be a nice kind of epilogue for us at Phase 3, because there's a lot of like bigger picture questions I have that we were talking about as we were leaving the theater. Like, so are they still in high school? I guess everybody kind of got snapped because they definitely didn't go to high school. Is the world just kind of almost resetting itself? And they're like, hey, last 5 years didn't happen. Let's just kind of go back and let's do it. So I'm really glad actually that they're keeping Spider-Man as being the end of Phase 3, because I feel like it's going to answer a lot of questions, if nothing for the fact that we're just going to get to see how they're living now.
Yeah, but I mean, that's so true. Like big picture things. So if you and I are the same age and Snap happened 5 years ago and now I'm back, did I age or are you just 5 years older? If that translates to high school, I guess I'm picking up where I left off and you've already graduated, like that could lead to some very weird relationships. And I have a feeling they're just going to say the world is back at peace and things are just continuing to move on. I doubt they'll give a deep explanation, but you never know. I mean, heck, the wreckage from the Battle of New York has spawned loads of different stuff in this movie or in this franchise. So who knows?
Yeah, and so I mean, at the very least, they'll have to at least explain like, oh, these 3 or 4 central people that we saw in the last Spider-Man movie were also Snap, so they're all still in high school.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how they're going to explain that. So, but I'm kind of glad that we have that little epilogue of this is life after the Snap and after everybody was brought back, of how people are living now.
Well, I can't wait to see where they go from here. They've got big shoes to fill. And
Yeah,
as all signs point to the fact that Marvel is just going to continue production schedule, right? Like they're just going to keep pumping out like 2 to 4 movies a year. And I mean, we're not really expecting a big break other than maybe putting more resources into shows than ever before because of Disney Plus. But as far as like MCU just continuing to hum along, it's still planning on continuing to hum along, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, I've heard them say probably shouldn't expect like 3 from us immediately, and it's probably going to be a while for another Avengers movie, but that it was like we're still going to have at least like bare minimum 1 movie will come out every year, and it'll be a while until we see like the Avengers assembled again, which that doesn't really bother me that much because like, okay, you have a long time. And I think that they said they were going to kind of take a break from doing like a giant overarching story right now. And it'll be more like smaller stories. Like it'll be a big villain, but it gets wrapped up in like 5 to 6 movies now instead of like 22 and stuff, you know?
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I'm very excited to see where they go because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I'm here.
Same as Endgame.
Well, my goodness, man, does that cover it?
I think that about covers it. I'm sure we're gonna have more to say, but for now, I am pretty satisfied with what we've laid out for our review.
Awesome. Yeah, the more I think about it, and upon a second and third and 10th viewing, we might come back to say more. But for now, that's where we'll leave it.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Scruffy Movies podcast. Once again, if you want to be entered to win a free digital copy of Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, just comment the code word ROCK below or direct message me at Scruffy Movies on Instagram. Again, the code word is ROCK. Please follow us on Instagram at Scruffy Movies.
And Crockalicious.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. For the first time in a few months, I don't know what the next episode of the show is going to be, so we will see you then when we have a topic I'm sure we will work out in the meantime.